Hare Krishna. This is Rambhoru from Karuna Care Education. And I'm going to just share a few thoughts on remaining mentally healthy during the coronavirus epidemic. Many of you probably are feeling anxious, or you know somebody who's very anxious. And one thing to know is that it's completely normal and reasonable to be anxious at a very uncertain time as this. Some of the worries that people are having is losing their job. Maybe they've already lost their job, trying to pay house payments, having enough money for food, possibly being able to pay a college loan or a house loan. These are legitimate worries in an unpredictable time as this. So have some self-compassion on your anxiety if you're stressed. One of the things that is really concerning in a time like this where there's a mandate of social distancing is that loneliness is a risk that can turn into isolation and depression. It's critically important to have social distancing in order to ward off this terrible virus. At the same time, loneliness is a real thing. It's a real danger for spiraling down and down into a dark place of depression. So staying connected with friends and family by phone and Facebook and getting online and connecting with other devotees with kirtans and japa and lectures and is really important. And calling people up that you haven't seen in a while, and listening and sharing your anxiety and your concerns and being empathetic with people who are stressed out. It's beneficial to you as the listener and also as the person being listened to. Another piece that is helpful in coping with anxiety and stress during a difficult time is not to listen to so much news, or being careful where you are getting this news that you're consuming. The mind is very vulnerable to whatever you put into it. It's like a machine. Whatever things you put in, it will come out. And so it's really helpful if you're stressed or overstressed to be careful about how much news you're putting in your mind and where that news is coming from. There's an awful lot of conspiracy theories and false theories floating around, and that can create a lot of anxiety in the mind, like what if? It may be safe just to go to cdc.gov and get the facts that are relevant to you. Find out what you need to know in your local area, your state, your town. What are they doing? What are some of the precautions? What are some things that you need to be doing to abide by whatever the laws are? Just keep it simple and don't catastrophize too much, because that will increase stress. Another thing that is helpful for coping in a time like this is just practicing acceptance of what is. There's really no guarantee that even the news, the information in the news, is absolute news. It's changing all the time, and there's not a lot we can do about it as citizens except for just accept that this is the circumstance right now, and trust that everything is in God's hands, and that He is aware. And He's in the heart of everyone, even those administrators who are trying madly to figure it out. But this is a good time to practice just being in the present moment. If you find that you need to create some distance from the news and maybe not watch it at all, it can be helpful just to ask a friend or a family member to tell you a couple of tidbits, what's the latest, and avoid putting that in your mind altogether. If someone's already watching the news, have them tell you what the latest is, if there's any new developments, and then you can avoid all that anxiety going in your mind. Another thing that's really important is taking care of your own physical health, exercise, eating a healthy diet if you can, taking walks, getting on a bicycle. If you can't go out because of the weather, learn yoga, do some stretches, walk around your basement. If you have an interest, this is really important to get moving, because just sitting around being anxious and feeling sad about the situation will only make it worse. Sleeping too much also, and getting completely absorbed in the uncertainty of the time is probably not a good thing. So getting active and getting in the fresh air, if you can, is a really good thing for mental health. Trying to stay in the present moment is really important. If we think too far in the future, it can increase our stress. If we think too far in the past, we become subjected to sadness or a loss, that, gosh, I can't do today what I did yesterday. I'm really missing something about yesterday. If I think, gosh, this could happen in the future, the worst case scenario, then I get anxious. And we find in the Hare Krishna movement that the best way to stay in the present moment is to absorb our mind in hearing about Krishna, chanting the holy name, singing bhajan, and reading the transcendental literature of Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. It's also a good opportunity, maybe you have more time that you can spend on your hearing and chanting about Krishna. So this is a good time. You might want to learn new slokas. You might want to learn a new bhajan. If you've always wanted to write a article for Back to Godhead, this could be the perfect time to do it. And if you're not very much interested in those kind of intellectual activities, do something physical. You might clean your attic, clean your basement, sort out your drawers, do something constructive, organize something, clean something. That's uplifting. To organize anything outside of you will also organize things inside of you, which is really good for mental health. And finally, I can suggest that if you feel isolated, one of the best ways to get out of feeling isolated is to reach out to others with help. So if you're a younger person, maybe under 60 years old, and you have a neighbor that's living alone and over 60 and in that vulnerable population at risk of getting COVID virus, call them up and say, I'm going to the store. Can I pick you up something? It doesn't mean that you have to go in their house. You can drop it in front of their door, but I bet they will be terribly grateful for you reaching out and offering some help. It will help you also feel like you're doing something useful for other people if you reach out in that way. And in this way, we will not be so vulnerable for feeling lonely and isolated. So that's all I wanted to say. I hope some of this was helpful. Probably you knew all of it already. It's always good to remind ourselves how we can stay afloat in a difficult time. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.